I really don't want American women of any age to grow up and be fearful and useless and only aspiring to look sexy in spandex and know how to do your makeup and hair. That is not what womanhood is, and we need to take back our dignity and our self-respect as women and actually learn things that are very useful and provide for our well-being and the others in our lives, especially for the sake of survival. This is about staying warm in the winter, and these things are very important, and you can't wait around necessarily for someone else to do it for you. Hello and welcome. This is Jessica with Skilled Womanhood. So we are moving on in our chainsaw knowledge today. I'm hoping that you've already checked out how to sharpen your saw and really get it prepared to be as safe as possible and functional as possible, because there's nothing worse than working with tools that don't work, because they're dangerous and they're annoying and they slow you down. First, I wanted to show you my setup. So I have a log crib, and a lot of what I cut up are little spars and smaller logs, and I prefer to be off the ground because I don't want to drag my saw in the dirt, on rocks, on concrete. So I like to put them in my crib, and it's easier on my back and my body, and I've spaced out my crib the way I built it, so it's approximately 16 inches wide. So when I make the cut, I know that's going to be the exact length I need for my wood stove, because remember, my objective is to get my stove ready for the winter, get enough cords of wood, and be ready for the cold. Okay, so first I'm going to show you my setup here. So this is my log crib. I load up my crib with a bunch of spars, and I like to chain them, because if you know anything about working with a chainsaw, it's very easy for loose pieces. Anything that's not a real heavy log can move around on you, and it's highly likely that it wants to flip up and whack you, or you want to protect yourself from that. So I like to chain it, so I'll show you a little bit about that. I also keep my my bow saw here. So I've got a couple hooks on my crib so that I can hang things like my ear protection and such. I like the crib on a slope, so it's going down. I feel like I can get over on top of the wood better, and it just feels safer to me. I don't want to have anything where I feel like the wood's coming up on me, and I don't want to have to lift my chainsaw up really high. I want to keep it down low, so I like this to be at pretty low elevation for my body. So again, I'll talk about the chain right now. I like to chain big kind of big piles of these spars. So if I have, look, I probably got half a dozen here or more. I want to tie them up tight. I secure them with a carabiner here as tight as I can, and then I put a wedge in, because that really wedges it tight. So I'm not concerned about any of these little spars, these little logs, kicking back or moving around on me, because that's definitely, there's potential for danger there. When I show you how I'm doing this, I'm just going to be cutting here. I just move right through, because again, I spaced the crib 16 inches apart, so I know here, 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 it's going to be just the size for my wood stove. Of course, as I'm moving along, I'm going to have to stop and reconfigure the chain everything up again to make sure I feel safe, because I don't like working with chainsaws. It's not my favorite. And so I want to be as safe as possible, which means I'm going to move on to the personal protective equipment. So first thing, I always have a whistle around my neck, but I don't know where it is. It's a fluorescent orange whistle, so if anyone has found it, if you can get it to me, that would be great. And I'm so frustrated when I misplace tools, because I'm really good about putting them back. Tools are precious to me. All the equipment is precious, because this stuff is expensive, and I don't like spending more than I have to in the time of inflation. I'm not a big consumer, don't want to give people my money. So this is my gear here. I've got my ear protection, I've got my gloves. I like to wear a little more firm fitting gloves when I'm doing this work. I don't like my big bulky leather ones. The other thing, I wear boots, I wear a heavy canvas, I always wear a long sleeve usually, unless it's super baking hot. Because sometimes I'm handling bigger logs and grabbing hold of stuff and it can scratch my arms. I also don't want stuff flying back and getting on me, possibly scratching me up. And then I have my my eye protection. I usually wear these glasses, but I like to wear my eye protection when I'm doing stuff like this, because I'm kind of going far and close distance, far and close, and I don't need to have my fine cheater readers things going on. The other thing I do, because we're in really dry California, I keep a hose turned on, ready to go, because if there's any spark, if there's any possibility of fire, I want to make sure I can put that out really quick, because we've got a real problem with fire up here in the Sierra Nevada foothill area, so I have to keep safe with that. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to show you how I start the chainsaw, get it going. I'm definitely wanting to listen for anything that sounds funny. I want it to be kind of idling nicely, not too high, not too low. So there's a little throttle adjustment that I'll tend to, and I use my scrunch for that. And let it warm up just a little bit, and then we'll get to the cuts so you can watch how I do that. But it makes a big difference, again, to chain up or somehow tie up a whole bunch of these little logs or spars, whatever you want to call them, to protect yourself. Because if you're just doing one little, let's say a 4-foot segment of a piece of branch or a little log, it is going to be a nightmare, because it just rolls around all over the place and it can be dangerous. So if you can get a whole bunch of them and chain them together, tie them up somehow, it'll be safer to go through them. So that's, I can't emphasize that enough. Like if you try to take a log, let's say, look, here's my pile, my growing pile. Let's say this is too long to go into my wood stove. The last thing you want to do is approach this with your chainsaw and just start cutting, because this thing is going to roll around on you, because that chain is moving so quickly around the bar that this is going to want to flip around, and it can knock you in the teeth and cause you problems. So we don't want to do that. So this has been my solution. Just tie everything up real good and get to it. I also wear shirts like this. Like these kind of shirts are so functional. It's not about style. And the one thing I can tell you, like, no spandex allowed when you're doing this. No super loose, whether it's spandex, not allowed. Loose hair, not allowed. You're not going to be in your bikini. Let's get realistic here. My dad always has this funny joke, like, Jess, unless you're doing like logging in a bikini, I don't know if you're going to be really popular in this culture. And I think that's a fact. So hopefully I'll have a following of women who don't want to be in a bikini anymore, or spandex, or any of that stuff. I don't care how comfortable they say it is. I'm over it. I want to be super functional. So I tie, or I've got this up, got my glasses, I got a hat on, my hair is pulled back, I'm going to get my gloves on, got my long sleeve, got my boots, you know, I'm good to go. So I also have a little bag of my gear, so if I have to do any sharpening, I've got my 2 files with me, I've got my scrunch. I don't worry about my raker gauge. I should have my whistle around my neck. I don't know where it is. Again, if you can find it, please get it back to me as soon as possible. And so, because I might need to check the throttle, okay? So I've seen people, they kind of have this really rad way that they like pull it like this. They like use the weight of the chainsaw to drop and pull. I can't do it that way. It's too hard on me. So I do it the way that the manufacturer says to do it, where you put your foot inside this section. So to start this up, I'm going to be pressing this 6 times. I have to have this up when I do that. Then I'm going to pull this. So this is getting gas into the carburetor. I believe it's into the carburetor. There's a spark in here. So I don't understand how a small engine works exactly. I've been around a little bit, but it still baffles me. But I'm going to be pulling this. You'll watch me do that. Then if I can't get it in about 3 turns to start, I'm going to drop this down, keep going. As soon as I hear the engine start, I'm going to be putting on the safety and putting my, I guess that's the throttle gun suppressor thingy. I don't know what it's called either. The trigger, let's call it. So if I have a problem and I hear there's something wrong with the idle, the way if it's too fast or too slow, you can see this T. Get out of the way. You can see this T here. This is where my throttle is. I'll increase it or decrease it because I don't want the engine to run too fast or too slow. If it goes too slow, it's going to conk out and stall, and I don't want that. Before I begin, I think I'm going to tell you a little bit about the instruction I've received from some really super professional arborists. Let's say you're running your chainsaw, wah, wah, and then you have to configure something. You have to pick up a piece of wood or do something. I want you to take the brake, okay, let's say, so the brake is off right now, is able to run, wah, 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 wah. If you need to use your hand, you're going to put the brake on, turn it this direction with the head at your thigh, okay, just like that. Make sure you're not walking into anybody like that, okay, but that's an important hold, okay, not like this, not like that, you know, clearly. I would recommend you also go look at a lot of other chainsaw operators. Watch how they do it. Practice up. It took me years to get to the point where I was ready to work a chainsaw. Okay, let's say this is on. Okay? Like this. Great. Like that. Okay? Gotta do this. This brake is really important. Okay? You walk like this. Don't forget to do this. You've got to put the brake on. Because if anything hits this while it's running, you can hurt yourself or somebody else. So this is too serious. Mama Jess doesn't mess around when I teach about chainsaws. You can't be stupid. You can't be careless. You have to pay attention to every single thing you're doing because it could get really, really dangerous. It's really important that you are going to be protecting yourself from any kickbacks, okay? So when you're running this, you want to have a really strong arm. I'm assuming that you'll probably be right-handed using a machine like this, a chainsaw like this. But you're going to want this to be really strong. You don't want it coming back at you. That's the main objective here. Okay? So my position, I'm not going to stand like this. I'm going to have my knees slightly bent. Okay? I'm crouched down a little bit. There's much more stability when my legs are bent and strong this way. When I let it run through, I'm going to allow the weight of the chainsaw to pull it down, and I'm going to be making sure this arm is strong, and I'm going to be rocking it as I go through. I want to show you these. I have no idea what these are called. They're some kind of spike. But this is a good anchor point where you can dig this in to whatever log you're working with, and that's going to be your pivot point, your anchor point, and you can be rocking the chainsaw just like that. One thing I realized you got to do, you got to get the blade going really fast. If that chainsaw blade or chainsaw is going, if the chain is going really fast, you're going to have a better chance of it cutting better without it biting and kicking back, okay? So I could tell it was idling low and I was trying to get to the throttle to increase it, but it stopped before I could get to it. So now I got to restart it. I got to get to that throttle. You'll see that I'm trying to get the engine going. I'm giving it gas. I'm wanting to get it running. I'm wanting to warm it up. So I'm kind of running it. You don't want to run it like wide open, like wah! You want to do kind of feather it, hear it, listen to it. You don't want to go full bore though. Just kind of back off, go easy, because you're just trying to get it warmed up. Okay, so it will stay on, it won't die. This is normal. It's because you need to watch someone who's been doing this for a long time. You need to understand the learning process. You need to understand overcoming adversity, pushing through the difficulties, and figuring things out, because this is how it is all the time. Okay? So now we're going to go on over to the larger log, and I'm going to show you what I was taught by the Davy tree guy when I was up in Santa Cruz. Okay, we are at the log. Just take a good span of it. It's not too big. I feel like my bar could handle it. If it was any bigger, I would not feel like my bar is long enough. So you have to have the right chainsaw for the job. I have a little bit of water here. I'm not by a hose. Well, actually, there's a hose over there, so I could, if there was any problems with a spark, I could deal with that. But I've got some water here. I've got my tools. If I have any problems, I can sharpen anything. The thing I wanted to show you is wedges. The one thing about chainsaws is that they can bind. You know what that means? It's like when the log wants to pinch, okay? That's why I like to work with things that are flat and always start at the end, because if I can cut it and it kind of drops off, cut it and drop. Like I try to avoid doing anything where there's gonna be a bind, where it's gonna catch, it's gonna pinch my bar, and then I gotta fight to get it out. Okay, I don't wanna deal with that. So something you can do, if you've gotten a little ways into the log and you can see it starting to bind, you can get a wedge, put that in it, the bar will be underneath, this will be wedged in, and you can keep going, and this will keep it open so it won't bind up, okay? So those are really valuable. So the other really important thing, I'm going to say it again, I have to make sure that I'm going to be running these cuts 16 inches or shorter. Okay, it's best to do it at 16 and not make a whole bunch of little cuts, because that's too much work on my engine, on my chain. I feel like I can't hear, I'm talking super loud. I'm deaf. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to be focusing on that 16 inch. And a way to do it, I know that I have an 18 inch here. So if I measure this and I'm coming in a couple inches right about here, I can know, like I've got little marks here on my bar. I can say if I come in 2 little dots here, that's going to give me a 16 inch cut, and I can just walk down. Okay, so if I was starting down here, I might start down here and move up, but I can measure it, right? Cut, do my measure again, cut. Okay, so this is what I learned from this delightful Mexican man who was working for Davy Tree when I was watching them deal with a massive redwood tree in the Santa Cruz Mountains. They had to get up and cut that thing down. They had all kinds of trees on the power lines. It was a really grueling situation. But the guy was so kind to me. He actually gave me the rigging book that was sitting on the dashboard of the big Davy tree truck. So that was really special for me, because I really dig all this stuff. Kind of an opportunity of a lifetime. Okay, so let's get it started. Oh, let me teach you first. So what he told me was this. You want to have, whether you're right or left, you're going to just have to follow along. You know how to do it. But I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be having this here, okay? So he says you're going to have your knee back, and the right knee back on the ground, and your left knee up, okay? Like so, at a 90 degrees. And he says you're going to want to push down here like this with a strong straight arm here. You will be rocking it, like I said, on that anchor point of these spikes. You don't lift it up. You don't need to do any kind of fancy stuff. You definitely don't need to come underneath. So I don't want anyone that I'm teaching right now to do any undercuts. Okay, you're not ready for that. I actually prefer not to do them, so I try to deal with wood that I can manipulate, so I'm only doing the cuts that I feel comfortable with. I have no interest in exceeding my capacity or going on in any kind of competitive challenge. Like, I'm just trying to be as simple as possible because it is way too sketchy for me. And I'm getting older and I just don't want to hurt myself. Okay, so you're going to watch me do this. This is my position and I'm going to be like this. Okay? I also want to be careful of my blade. There is a part here that is very scary. If you hit the tip, it's going to want to back up at you, okay? Right here. And this is the better where they do plunge cuts, where they go right into the wood. I just avoid using this area. This is my personal comfort level, okay? Okay, I want to tell you something else away from the chainsaw. I'm allowing the weight of the head of the chainsaw to do most of the work. I'm trying not to use so much of my strength, but let the chainsaw do the work. You also want to watch out for the blade. You don't want it to hit the ground because that will dull the chain and you put all that work into it. So avoid the ground, let the machine do the work. So a couple more things. I want you to see this up close. And I know that I speak about that spike thing on the head being the anchor point which you pivot. I'm kind of moving stuff around a little bit, so I can't say it's always pivoting there because I slide my chainsaw back and because if I just stuck it there, I couldn't go further down. I have to pull the chainsaw away a little bit, put the spike in again, work it down. All right, so I'm cutting down, pulling the spike out of the wood, putting it back in, dropping it down, back, spike in. Okay, so I'm doing this kind of movement. So hopefully you can see me up close what I'm doing, okay? Watch the movement of the blade. By the time you get to that shorter length, this is always a problem. It wants to wheel up and bind in the chainsaw. So what I did is I pressed my foot, kind of held it so that I could keep going. But I don't like having my feet around the log also. So those are some things that you have to be mindful of when you're getting to that smaller span. It's going to want to move. There's not enough weight to hold it steady. And that chainsaw, the nature of the circular movement of the saw is constantly wanting to wheel back in, wheel, and like flip stuff up right into you. And that is the problem. And remember, probably a lot of us are not going to do a lot of this kind of work. We're only doing enough to get ourselves firewood for the season. Though I will be doing some video on bucking a whole tree, like the branches, all the way to the larger trunk. Just recap. Make sure you got it the right length. You do not want to have to recut these short segments of log. It's too much of a nightmare. Keep yourself with your knee on the ground, your other leg up. Keep that arm strong. Keep it away from you, and you're just kind of rocking it down, pulling it back to get away from that spike, and then rocking it down. You can put that spike back in. But you're definitely, it's just like anything you learned, you got to feel it out and feel what's comfortable for you. All right, so that is what I got for chainsaw operation. Safe chainsaw operation. And I will tell you that I don't believe there is such thing, but we do our best. Just be wise, but don't be too scared, because this is stuff that has to get done. And again, I'm mostly referring to women where you have no help. You have no one around. You're widowed, you're single, you're divorced, you don't have a father around, you have no men around who usually do this stuff. So this is where we have to take the initiative and be assertive and figure out how to do it ourselves. And it's not ideal, but I also know some women love this stuff, like that logger. Sandy in Idaho. Hi, Sandy. Thanks for everything you taught me. She let me even drive her bulldozer. And I cut a tree that was probably like maybe 2.5, 3 feet wide. That was a big deal for me with one of her massive chainsaws. And that was it for me. I don't need to do any more. I like to do the little stuff. I feel comfortable with that. Be encouraged. I want you to be confident and grow in your competence. And really, I think you can only get confidence through competence, and that takes a lot of years of hard work. Do not step out into this arena with any degree of arrogance or know-it-allness or thinking you're just going to, take to it really easily. You have to do your time in beginners. So that's why I'm going to press one more time. Make sure you make your cuts right. Make them the size of the wood stove. Don't be careless and lazy, because I find that would only increase the possibility of you injuring yourself. And I don't want to be a part of that. But I also know I'm not responsible for that, because I am telling you right now, and anything you do henceforth is on you. So I know we are in a country that loves to blame people, like, well, they taught me this or they did this. If you pick up a chainsaw, that's on you, and you have to do everything in your power to be wise about it. Work smart and don't be stupid. Don't be careless and don't be lazy and don't take shortcuts, because it's way too dangerous. Okay, so I think that's everything. But go get them, ladies. I'm really proud of you. We can do this. All right, take care till next time. Bye-bye.